Does it look different in here or what? Yeah? So, we just finished, how do I say this? What did I say it was? For 19 weeks, we went through the book of Ecclesiastes, right? We went through Daniel, we went through 1 Peter, and we went through Ecclesiastes, one of the weirdest, darkest, strangest books of the entire Bible. But we did it. And we decorated afterwards. And I figured, I should have some sort of treat, or perhaps your expectations have changed a little bit when you come to church. Like, man, Alex is going to be super depressing for a while. But we're Christmas time, we're in Advent, we're going to talk about hope. And as we begin, I want to set a tone in the beginning. And so I have a gift for all of you. Are you ready for this? Yeah? All right, Rodney, slide number 1. My dog. She's a puppy. Yeah, that's right, a puppy picture. If this is your first time with us, we're a good church. We show puppies during the sermon. This is her hiking. And I'll tell you, throughout my whole life, I've had dogs, right? But when I was younger, I didn't buy the dogs. My mom bought the dogs. So she would buy Chihuahuas, mostly. Has anyone ever had or seen a Chihuahua? They're mean dogs. Oh, they're mean. The smaller they get, the meaner they get too, I've learned. Chihuahuas and all these small dogs I grew up with were just, honestly, my mom's been coming lately, but I don't see her. They were bad dogs. And I got married, and for a long time we didn't have dogs because we live in apartments. We finally bought a house, and the moment has come. We have a yard. And Michaela was reluctant. I don't know if I want a dog. We've been living life without any animals, and life has been good. Do we really want to disrupt this? And I said, but here's the thing. I know what life is like with bad dogs, and I love them. So what we're going to do is we're going to be intentional, and we are going to get a good dog. And it's going to be even more awesome. So we get Daphne. And I will tell you, she is a good dog. I can say the best dog I've ever had in my entire life, and we've only had her a year. I think this week was a year that we've had this puppy that hikes with us and entertains us and is so great. Well, we did something we had never done before this year. For Michaela's family, we hosted Thanksgiving, which means all the family came to our house. So we set the table, we did all the food and stuff, and I will tell you, this was a high-stakes Thanksgiving, and I will tell you why. Because at the Stadler home, we have a dog. At the in-laws' home, they have a cat. And we want them to love our dog, our good dog. And as much as we try to convince them that she is so good and that she is worth loving, you don't have to love her more than your cat, but like just the same. She's just as good as your cat. They had been reluctant to believe us. And so this Thanksgiving, they came to our house. And so not only were they going to be exposed to our good dog, this was our chance to let them truly see in her own environment, this is a good dog. This was a high-stakes Thanksgiving. And they came over, and she loves people. She loves people more than anything else in the whole world. And if you come over to our house, you will find that she loves you more than anyone or anything else in the whole world. It's great. But after about 40 seconds, she doesn't really care that much anymore, especially if you ignore her. If you ignore her, 40 seconds tops. It's all over. Right? So, but we got planned. She's grown. She's learned. In-laws come over, and she loves them, but nobody gets knocked over. Everything's good. We start having meals. We're sitting up. We're talking. We're chatting, and we have such a good dog just chilling with us. And the sister brings her dog, and then you get to see the dogs playing out in the snow, and she's a puppy. She's so cute. The way she plays with this dog. Who could not love this dog? It's working, I think. They are going to come to see that they can love our dog too. We're sitting down, we're chatting, And from the table, or where I'm sitting in the table, I can see into the kitchen, and I saw something I had never, ever seen before a few hours into this meal. And as it turns out, Daphne loves mashed potatoes. So much so that she is willing to break the rules to get them. And in my shock, because she's never done this before, she has never gotten up on a counter and started eating food. Like, the amount of times she's had people food in her life is like 2 or 3 times when some kids have come over and given her food. Otherwise, she doesn't care at all about food. She's never had it. But for the first time, I look, and there's our dog on the counter while we're all eating dinner, eating mashed potatoes. And I was shocked, shouted, Daphne, and the whole world, what? There's our dog eating the extra mashed potatoes. I just want them to love our dog. And it was all ruined in a moment. She had never done this before. She's such a good dog, I promise you. And she got into the mashed potatoes, and then into the salad. She even got into pumpkin pie.
And it was all good.
Why? We had such great hope for this Thanksgiving, that we would come together as a family. It would be chill. There would be no fighting. We'd laugh. We'd play games. And at the end, we would leave. And her parents might, even if we're not around, just say, you know what, that dog that they have, it's a good dog. What did they say in the car when no one could hear? I don't know. But it was probably about our stupid dog. Hope is the topic that we're talking about this week as we transition into this season of Advent. The season on the church calendar where Christians all around the world, and we'll all do it differently, but we will spend these 4 weeks before Christmas Eve preparing our hearts to celebrate the coming of Jesus. And every week we'll choose a different topic, and they're chosen for a reason. But this week we're going to talk about hope. So, here's the verse that I want to start with. This is out of 1 Peter. Therefore, with minds that are alert and fully sober, set your hope on the grace to be brought to you when Jesus Christ is revealed at his coming. We're going to talk about what hope means. We're going to be nerdy here for a second, and then we're going to come back to Christmas and what our lives look like right now. But this is what I want us to start with. This idea that we have this calling in the New Testament. We, the church, their minds fully alert to set our hope on the grace to be brought when Jesus is revealed at his coming. But we have to be alert and fully sober, which means we have to see the world for what it is. We have to know God's plan. What is it we're hoping for? What is this grace that's going to be brought to us? We've got to be aware. We can't be distracted. We have to be focused on what it is we're hoping for. And so what are we hoping for? Well, there's a story here that we got to be aware of. And so we're going to go all the way back to Genesis, to God making a promise to someone in their hope. So this is out of Genesis 12. And this is, the Lord said to Abram, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. This is God making a promise. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse you. And all peoples on the earth will be blessed through you. This is a promise that God is making of Abraham. And if we've been reading the story so far, we know that God is on a mission. He created a world that is so good, and he filled it with people that he loves, who are to rule the world as he rules over the world, so that life flourishes in everything that they do and everywhere that they go. Because humans are on this world doing God's will, this world should be nothing but just the flourishing of life and goodness. But what happens? They take the control and the power that they have, and they don't use it for the flourishing of life on this world. They use it for their own flourishing. And by the next page, their own children are dying. But God makes a promise that though evil has come into this world and it will fight against us, the day will come where God will send a son of man to crush this serpent, to crush evil. Very, very early in the Bible, we have God's promise. The world is not how it's supposed to be, but God will do something about it. But, like most of the time, God tells us he's going to do something. It looks nothing like how we think it's going to look. And after reading through Genesis, by the time you get to Genesis 12, you have watched a lot of people die. Honestly, you've seen a lot of weird stuff happen. If you sit down and read your children, Genesis 1 through 12, you're going to have a lot of explaining to do over and over and over. And really the answer is just, people are just kind of messed up. But it's all after this promise. Where is God? What is he doing? And then all of a sudden, cut scene, here we are. God is making a promise to this man. You got to leave your family. Which means he's going to have to depend on God in a way that he never has before. But he's making a promise. Though you'll have to depend on me, I will bless you. And I will use your family to bless the whole world eventually. Again, cut scene. Go a few more chapters. And God and Abram are talking again. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless? And one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus. And Abram said, you have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir. I think this is important in this story because just a few chapters ago, we see this promise. You're going to have so many children. I'm going to use you to bless the whole world, right? We didn't read it, but it even tells at one point, look at the stars. Your children will be as numerous as the stars. And a few chapters later, we have God again coming to Abram saying, man, I'm going to do such great things for you and with you. And finally, he's like, man, that's great. Where is it? Where is this child? How am I going to be a father? When I die, some other person is going to be the head of my family now. God, what are you talking about? We can understand this. We have all heard promises from God, whether it's in the Bible or other places, and just been dumbfounded, saying, God, what in the world are you doing? And he keeps going. Rodney. There we go. Then the word of the Lord, Then the word of the Lord came to him, this man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir. He took him outside and he said, look up at the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them. Then he said to them, so shall your offspring be. Abram believed the Lord and he credited it to him as righteousness. He had something to hope for. And God comes back again and again and again, making it clear, I will do what I promised. Every year we celebrate Christmas. Advent and everything we're doing right now, it can feel repetitive because we go through this every single year. But this is important because we have hope in a promise that has yet to be made good on, that's yet to be fulfilled. And as we live life, especially through the next few months, as stressful as it can be easy to lose sight and to lose faith. It can be easy to start to wonder whether or not these promises are real or whether they're ever going to happen. But this is common. But we come back and we celebrate Christmas year after year after year to remember it may not have happened yet, but God never fails. What is it we're hoping for? Abram is hoping, I'm going to have a child. I'm going to have an heir. When I'm gone, there'll be a smooth transfer of power. All the things I worked for will still stay in my family. That's great. But what we need to realize here is that what God has in mind is a whole lot bigger than just the one little thing Abram wants. Just wants a kid. Be great for his life, for the one little speck of history that he lives in. Be helpful. Child, he liked it. Bring joy. All sorts of reasons he could want this child. But when we think about it, really, it's short-sighted. It's all kind of selfish. He's talking to the God who created the whole universe, whose power and love is just limitless. And I just want this one little thing for myself. But God, being so much greater than we are, says, I will give you that. But really, I am going to give you so much more. Through your family, through this one little child I'm going to give you, I am going to turn your family into the family that saves the entire world. It is from your offspring that the heel will come that crushes this serpent. It's not just your family that's going to gift from God, but because of this gift I give you, the whole world will experience the great power and grace and love of God. This promise is still with us today, right? And that's one thing we celebrate on Christmas, is that a baby was born. Jesus came to save the whole world. But Jesus has come, and he did die, and he did rise again, which is great. We talk about it, and we worship, and we praise every week because Jesus came, and he died, and he saved. Then he ascended, and it's easy, 2,000 years later, even though we still believe, and we know this God, this Savior is still living. His heart is beating right now. But things aren't quite what we thought they were going to be, are they? Did you know that this time of year, funeral homes are the busiest they will be all year long? This is a time of joy. It's a time of celebration. We have happy music playing all over the place. Joy to the world. There is no time where the world also mourns more, right? When we're little kids, Christmas is so great. And the truth is, though, as we get older, the magic of Christmas fades. Because it actually becomes a lot of work, becomes a lot of stress. As we get even older and older, Christmas actually becomes maybe a time of mourning than a time to be with family, because less and less family shows up. What do we do with these promises when we say, man, we celebrate the coming of Jesus? We celebrate that God has done something truly great for us. His Spirit lives in us. But why don't we have that child yet? Why has the serpent not been crushed? Why is there still emptiness in us? Why is it so hard? Why is it when I just want to have a nice, peaceful get-together with my family, my dog of all things has to ruin it? Why does so much just go wrong, even when we're trying our best, even when we're all Christians? Because our hope is bigger than just this. It's just bigger than what we're taught as children Christmas is all about. It's more than the presents. It's more than the pretty lights. It's more than the songs. It's more than the singing. The important thing about Christmas is we come and we remember that Jesus came. But he came for more than to just die, rise, and ascend. We have more to hope for. And we see that near the end of the Bible. So we're going to fast forward really quickly from Genesis to Revelation. And this is very near the end of our Bibles. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away." He who was seated on the throne said, "I am making everything new." This week, because Michaela is a school teacher, she had the whole week off, which is great. And my car desperately needed an oil change. So I said, this works out perfectly. I don't need to go to the shop and sit in the little lobby for 2 hours while they work on my car. I can go with my wife. We have 2 cars, 2 people. This is great. So she drove me. And then while we're waiting, we went and got brunch, and we still had some time. And so we went to a bookstore. And we're walking around and looking through Bookstore, like, wow, it's so cool, these things still exist. And as we're going, we get to the religion section, which is actually kind of large. And I'm always interested. You can judge a bookstore by their philosophy, classics, and religion section. I didn't know if you know this. And I'm looking at it, and I saw this book, top left, right eye level, right there. And it's colorful and stuff, and it was titled Finding Your Paradise. It's in our religion section, right? And I think the reason why Christmas can be so difficult for us is because it's supposed to be the time where you get what you want, right? Santa comes and he gives you the thing. You write him the letter and you get what you want when you're a kid. And you have parents that know what you want. You can get what you want. This is awesome, right? But the older we get less and less and less of what we want. And what I want on Christmas is to just sleep in and have a day off. That's not going to happen. It's going to be the busiest day of the entire year. I'm going to get home and I'm going to be exhausted. It's just not quite what we want. We're going to be with family. We think it's going to be a friend. We're going to laugh and we're going to have fun. But we got, the one sibling that makes jokes that don't quite fit in, right? We got the aunt and the uncle that just have to go on and on about the trip that we don't care about. Right? We have all of these different things going on Christmas that don't actually have anything to do with the spirit of unity. All this stuff comes together that makes us actually feel like, I don't know if I want to know these people. It's the time that's supposed to bring us together, but it separates us, right? It's the time of peace, joy, love, hope. But it makes me hope it's over because there wasn't a whole lot of love. Right? And it wasn't peaceful at all. And I actually left pretty angry and annoyed. And I have a headache now. The older we get, where you see man, this isn't what I want. But we are told what we're hoping for is that someday we're going to get our paradise. Apparently you can go to the religion section and read books on how to make your paradise real. How God, you can trust him. He's going to make your paradise real. But why are we reading this today? Because I want to change all of that before Christmas comes. As we begin this season of thinking and preparing our hearts for Christmas, what are we actually hoping for? We're hoping for God to fulfill his promises. And for us, it may feel like it's something small right in front of our eyes. I just want to sleep in. I just want to not go over budget. I want to be able to pay all my bills in January. That would be really nice. That's right here. And the thing that we know about our God is that he is a God who saves, past, present, and future. And all of these burdens on your shoulders, God is with you. And he has a plan to save and to fix. But what we're hoping for, if we truly don't want to miss God's glory on Christmas, is bigger. And it is not a promise that God is going to take us to some paradise. Our promise, our hope is God is going to bring paradise to us. And if we don't want to miss the spirit of Christmas, What we need to start preparing in our hearts is not a deep hope of getting what we want, but starting to prepare our hearts and shape ourselves into people who want what God wants, to make all things new, to bring his kingdom into this world, which is a kingdom of peace. Is that what we're hoping for when we think of Christmas? Some of us maybe, but for all of us, I want to say, is what we should be hoping for. What does it look like for the next 4 weeks to go through a process and a journey as a church to change what's in us so that we no longer think of Christmas as a time to bring paradise of what we want into this world, but to let God bring his paradise into this world. And even if everything goes wrong on Christmas Day, to still find joy and peace because we know without a doubt that we have a hope that is not wishful thinking, a hope that is certain, that God's paradise will come into this world. That this vision, that this promise, that God's dwelling place will be with us, that we'll be his people and we'll be with him, that all things will be made new, that will happen. I had a plan this year. See, last year, I don't know if any of you know this, Michaela and I, we like to hike a lot. And we hiked 2 times last year. And we didn't do a single 14er, and we were not happy about that. So this year, we had a plan. We were going to do like 5 to 10. Me, I was like, we're going to do 20 of these suckers. Because that's the kind of person I am. So we get ready, we make all these plans, and we get going, we get a few done, but then I was going to take a week off of work. We had generous friends who were going to take us camping, and I was psyched. Because I'm like, man, you think we can't do 20 of these things? We're going to do 5, maybe 7 just this week. We're going to camp like right outside the San Juans, and it was going to be fantastic until our good dog needed surgery days before we left. And a dog post-surgery can't be a hiking dog. And dogs aren't super great at taking care of themselves. None of it happened. But something else did happen this year that I didn't expect at all. I didn't hike 20 14ers, but I went to every national park in Colorado. Total accident. I didn't want that to happen. It wasn't on my list, but God made it happen. And I learned something while I did this. Has anyone here ever heard of a dark sky park? Maybe some of you? So it's a really interesting thing. There are some parks, and there's a few in Colorado, actually quite a lot, where they are committed to, within the area of their park, making it so that there's as little light pollution as possible. So if you go to a dark sky park, you have some of the most spectacular views of the stars that you can have in the world now, because there's so much light pollution. Which I've learned, like, this is fantastic. Like when the sky is that clear of light pollution, like you can see the Milky Way, you can see shooting stars. It's gorgeous. Do you know why we can't see this kind of stuff from our front yard anymore? Because we have so many of our own lights. And I don't know that there's necessarily anything wrong with that, right? Like it's good in many ways to have control over light. We can see in the dark. It's safer, right? We can do more things. We can spend more time together. It just is what it is. I don't know if it's good or it's bad, but because of the fact that society keeps growing and we have so many lights, this grand sky that God's given us, we just can't see it anymore. It's Christmas tree. It's beautiful. I love Christmas lights, right? We'll drive around to see all the Christmas lights that people put on houses. They now have these things where it's just like a drive-through light thing, right? You know what I'm talking about? You just drive through the parking lot and it's all lights and it's dazzling, right? I mean, I haven't done one, but I'm sure it's fantastic. Everyone, you got to go do it. It's $60, but it's great. I believe you, right? Lights are good. I've been to a Taylor Swift concert. Lights can just really make the world really cool. It's amazing. But they can be distracting, right? This is where the tree goes in this church. It makes the most sense. It's in the middle of the room. It's tall. It's a tall tree. But do you know what's behind that tree? There's a cross. But we can't see it anymore because of the lights. You know, the tree's there to celebrate Jesus and Christmas. But all these fancy, pretty things that we come up with distract us from the real gifts that God himself has given us. See what I'm saying? This year, what does it look like to maybe dim the lights, right? To make Christmas more about a time to anticipate God's paradise rather than our paradise. And no, unlike our paradise, it's never going to come. When all we anticipate is our paradise, that's why the day after Christmas is one of the most disappointing days of the year. What do we do? On Black Friday, you go and you buy all this stuff. On the day after Christmas, you go and you return everything, right? That's what everyone's doing. It's a letdown because our paradise is actually not very good. And we're not actually very good at bringing it about. But God's paradise, there is nothing better. And I can promise you, it will come. And how do I know this? It's because of the dual meaning of Christmas. We remember that Jesus has come. He has. He has been here. The God of the universe has put his feet on our world. Why in the world is it so hard to believe that he'll do it again? Let Christmas not be about the presents and what has happened, but more about the promises of God and what will happen. But how do we make that happen? I want to finish this passage that we started reading out of Peter. So it's therefore with minds that are fully alert and sober. Set your hope on the grace to be brought to you. Not our paradise, God's paradise, because he is so gracious and loving, is on its way here. Let's never, ever forget that. And when Christ is revealed at his coming, when he comes back, when he brings his paradise to us, as obedient children, do not conform to the evil desires you had when you lived in ignorance. But just as he who called you is holy, so be holy in all you do, for it is written, be holy because I am holy. We got the first part, right? We now have sober minds. We know what we're waiting for. God's paradise is coming. Jesus has come and he will come again. And there is no greater promise God could give us. It's not about our paradise, it's God's paradise. So, instead of living for ourselves, instead of continuing the human paradise that really just makes our world worse, let's be holy. And holy is a weird church word. We only use that word in church. But if we were in each other's living rooms, we would use the word, so let's be different. Let's not be like everyone else. God is like no one else. And so if God's people are to be like God, we need to also be different. So what does that look like to be different this year? Let's be more like God. What does it look like that when we go to these functions and these parties, when we're shopping at Walmart at 4 a.m, to be like people who look like Christ, like people who aren't so concerned about their paradise, but are more interested in God's paradise of peace and love? What does it look like to be more like that? And in our frustrations, in our times of stress, in our times of anxiety, take a breath and remember, it's not about our paradise, it's about God's paradise. So all of these other things that are distractions, all these other things that cover up the true hope and meaning of Christmas, when they start to get to us, when they start to blind us, when they start to make it so we can't quite see the sky anymore, what does it look like to start turning down the lights, seeing the stars, and seeing what's actually important, right? I'm not telling us let's forsake decorating. My house is already fully decorated for Christmas. Our church is fully decorated for Christmas. Don't mishear me. I'm not saying celebration of Christmas with lights and stuff. That's not bad. And it is what it is. What I'm saying is we've got to control what's going on in here. Just this week, Rick and I, we were in Greeley, and we're driving back, and you could see the mountains covered in snow. And one of the few mountains, one of the few hikes we did this year is we got to stand on top of Long's Peak. And I've seen Long's Peak over there, almost all my life, right? And it's a very pretty mountain. When I see it, I tend to look at it and glance at stuff. But Rick probably thought I was so rude because we're in the car together, we're driving down here, and he's talking to me, and he thought I was ignoring him. I was listening, talking, but I just could not take my eyes off of Long's Peak because something was different this time. I've looked at this mountain my whole life, but just a few months ago, I stood right next to it. I stood right below it, beside it, and on top of it. And even though I am miles and miles and miles away now, as I saw it, because when you're a little more north and the other mountains get out of the way, you just have a better view. And I could see detail that I could never see before. But now that I've seen it up close, even when I'm far away, I can notice things that I hadn't noticed before. Does that make sense? What does it look like to be holy? There are a billion different things, but I just want to give us one thing to think about this week. What does it look like when we go into the world to give people an up-close view of God and his paradise so that even if people are far away from God, they can begin to see that beauty more and more, even if they're far. But we know, we talk about it all the time, those who follow Jesus, the very Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead is in us. We have the ability to love people like God. We bring God with us everywhere we go because the Spirit of God is with us. We are the temple now. We can show people God up close. But we have to be conscious of that. We have to be working on it. It doesn't just happen. So this is my one step for this week. What does it look like for us to spend time up close to God? Everyone I talk to, I'll even admit it, I don't know that I've ever met anyone who says, man, my prayer life and the time I spend with God is great. I wouldn't change it ever. No, all of us know, man, I wish I had more intimate relationship with God. I wish I spent more time with him. Right? So if we're going to truly be transformed in our hearts, we've got to make room for God to be up close with him. Let him be close to us. And so, for every day this week, and through all of Advent, and maybe the rest of your life if you can, one challenge. Every day, 5 minutes alone with God. I think this is hard because we make it so complicated, right? Like going to the gym, you just want to do everything. No. If you haven't been working out for a long time, you can't just go crazy. Like when you were in your 20s, you'll throw up. You got to start slow, one step at a time. Yeah, you only spent 5 minutes on the treadmill. You're still sore the next day. It's because that's your starting point. But after you do that for a week, you get to 10, 20, and you start going up hills. You got to build up to it. And so this is the task I ask us as we begin to prepare our hearts for Christmas. As we begin to go through a process where we truly do care more about God's paradise than our paradise, let's start to spend more time with God. So that even in times where we feel far away, we can still, when we see it, know that is what I really want. So just 5 minutes, and put it on your calendar. Put it on your calendar. You put everything else on your calendar. Just schedule 5 minutes Even if you're at work and it means you need to go outside and just sit in your car for 5 minutes in silence because you don't know what to do. Read Psalm 8. I don't know. Don't make it more complicated than it needs to be. 5 minutes, you and God. Did I do it right? I don't know. But schedule it. 5 minutes with God. And let this turn into something bigger. What does it look like to care more about God's paradise than our paradise? Even if it's just a 5-minute moment of silence. Amen? Dear God, you are so good. And we thank you for being a God who gives us such certainty in our hope. And as the holiday season begins, as the season of parties and cookies and driving and craziness and shopping and the list goes on and on and on and on and on, God, we want to take this moment to pause and prepare our hearts to be close to you. Because ultimately, there is no greater thing to hope for. There is no greater desire. There's no greater promise you've given us than the promise that we will get to be with you. That you will be our God and you will be with us. Let us find satisfaction in your presence. Let that be enough for us. Let us find peace in your presence, knowing that nothing else matters but to be with you. Help us to find joy, even in adversity, even in mourning, even in anxiety, knowing that you will fix all things, great and small. God, our hope in you is not wishful thinking. It is a certainty. Thank you for the hope that you give us. May it be enough. Amen.
Amen. That was amazing. Can we give Pastor Alex a word of thanks for that message? So we're going to share in communion, and if you don't have a cup, there's a table to the left of the Christmas tree that you can get one at. So how do we tie this message of hope into communion? And I think it's thinking about what Alex said. David wanted a kid more than anything. And God gave him a nation. When I didn't know Jesus, what I needed was freedom. I was in a jail of my own sins. And I was locked in and I couldn't get free. And the power of Jesus set me free. And that's how we tie in. And it gave me a freedom and a life that I couldn't dream of. So that's how we get there. Jesus gave his life for us so that our sins may be forgiven, setting us free from prison. The bread and grape juice symbolize the body and blood Jesus has given us. By eating the bread and drinking the juice, we acknowledge receiving this incredible gift. So, Matthew 26 tells us that Jesus took bread and after blessing it, broke it, and gave it to the disciples and said, Take and eat. This is my body. Let's partake in the body of Jesus. I guess I should do that ahead of time. Matthew goes on to tell us that Jesus took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, Drink of it, all of you, for this is my blood. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. Now let us partake in the blood of Christ. Amen. It is God's gift to us. So please stand if you're able and join us in worship.